Welcome everyone to the final episode of our special video series for the Keller and Rogers 2024 Asian auction sales taking place October 11th through 13th in Hong Kong. Ray, why are the Empress Dowager, Jubilee, and Surcharged issues so significant in classic China? And are there any interesting historical issues that tie in these stamps to Chinese history and the culmination of everything that happened at the time?
Well, there was a lot going on at the time, since they were issued in 1894 up through their last surcharge in 1897. The Empress Dowager herself was a very powerful but controversial figure. These stamps came out as a commemorative to her in an unsurcharged format. The interesting thing is, even before the stamps were actually issued, there were printed a variety of proofs on a variety of papers.
Oh, the carton papers. I remember we sold some lovely.
We had the black, the mother dye proofs,
yeah, wow.
and also the proofs on what we call cigarette paper,
sure,
and everything else in between. So there's such a rich area to collect there. There were two acknowledged printings of these. There was the first printing, and then there was also what they call the second printing, which I guess we can say at this point erroneously they call the Japanese printing. But again, they're very scarce, and they're very well represented in this sale as well. And then, of course, we got into, after the 1894s, we got into the surcharge issues, beginning with the small figure surcharges, and then the large surcharges, which were both in a wide and narrow setting. So why they were available in both printings.
Why did they make surcharges on the stamp?
Well, there was so much going on. Oh, there's a lot of stuff going on in China back then.
That's what I'm thinking.
China was going through all kinds of things, currency-wise, inflation-wise, so forth. And so, yes, these stamps were...
We can relate to that with inflation.
We're there today.
We just had a hamburger for $15.
Yes, that's true. But, you know, these surcharges just provide just such a fertile field for collecting. Some of them are incredibly rare. And then we're going to add in a couple other things about the Dowagers, which makes it even more attractive to the specialist collector. And that are the great varieties, including imperfect between pairs, imperfect singles, surcharge varieties, including shifts, overprints, double overprints,
inverted.
I
love that block of four of the inverted.
This issue has it all, really. I mean, no matter what you have, and I didn't even touch on the postal history, which is remarkable. In my opinion, some of the greatest postal history of the early years of China was centered around the period of the Dowagers. They presented some incredibly rare and colorful, and actually visually beautiful covers as well. So this issue really has it all.
So the Dowager issue, if I got it right, has all the different philatelic attributes that one might find on any specialized issue, tying in the printing methods, the overprinting methods, the production methods, the perforate, everything is tied into it. And then you've got all the great usages that are scarce to rare. And I don't remember seeing a lot of Dowager covers being on the podium for many years, starting with John Bull and, of course, on into Dynasty and then into Keller and Rogers. I don't remember seeing a lot of Dowager covers.
Yeah, in a typical China sale, you know, you may get anywhere from a couple to a half dozen or so, and of course, generally they tend to be the more ordinary varieties. I would say, in my opinion, again, the strength of Tony Kwan's collection is his postal history. I mean, he has some covers that cover just everything from earliest usages to unique usages to specific destinations to errors on cover. I mean, you name it, he's got it here. And so
Tony Kwan's collection, I've heard this term used elsewhere in referring to places or buildings, the UNESCO heritage site. This would be like the UNESCO heritage site of stamp collecting for the Dowager issue, right?
Well, it's certainly one of them. There were again, this issue has been so popular for so long, and over the years there have been many collectors who have put together great collections. And I would certainly say, without question, Tony's name will be amongst those. The one thing Tony did that maybe more than most other great collectors of the Dowager issues is that he actually recorded many of his things his research was impeccable and it was
So
exhaustive.
can you buy these books today?
That's a good question. I'm not quite sure, but we'll have that answer.
So any of you that want to try to find them, I'm sure Larry or Jeffrey could help you locate them, and you might just find it very interesting to learn even more about the story behind each lot, because of course we can't put the whole book into each lot description,
Right, that's
although
right.
we certainly tried to
Yeah.
do our very best. Well, that's really excellent, Larry. Thank you for that perspective. Can we hear from Jeffrey's point of view? We can go south to where he's at. And Jeffrey, we know you have extensive research on Qing Dynasty stamps and postal history, and you've been a lifelong friend of Tony Kwan for many decades. Jeffrey, could you discuss Mr. Kwan's standing in the Empress, Dowager, Jubilee, and Surcharged issues field? Why do so many collectors respect him?
Well, it's very interesting. Tony was, although he's a Hong Kong person, he was educated. He was educated in. I think he's in his mid-70s now, and I think he was educated. He was educated in Canada, and in the 19 and he returned from Canada to Hong Kong in 1980, and he had, like everyone, he had a schoolboy collection, and he liked the stamps because they had pictures of boats and animals and plants and that, and it was a small 2-volume collection. And when he got back to Hong Kong, he couldn't find the collection, and he decided he wanted to collect stamps. So, being a Hong Kong person, he started to collect the stamps of Hong Kong, and then through the guidance of well, he's now deceased, a well-known stamp dealer, Chinese stamp dealer. He got introduced to the classic Chinese stamps, the large dragon stamps and the Dowagers and everything else. And he suddenly decided that he would like to collect the Empress Dowager stamps. He found these very interesting. Tony was quite fascinated with all of this, and he's done quite a lot of research. And I think the last major publication he had was an enormous 3-volume work, which is too heavy to carry around, where he documented all of the known envelopes that were sent during the period. And so this has become really, really Tony's area. And I think when someone reads the catalog, they'll notice that we quoted a lot of Tony's works like that. And at the same time that Tony was doing it, there were other people that were collecting at the same time and produced books. So it was a little group of people that collected just this issue.
Your perspective on that, Larry, regarding the history and time strife and opening of trade in China at that time?
Well, all these things were happening, and plus a lot more. This was a really significant period of Chinese history. It was really when interaction with the outside world kind of got picked up a bit, trade picked up. Of course, along with that, become various conflicts and things of that nature were brewing through that time. But, again, as a collector and looking back on history, it's hard to find an issue that has more potential, more beauty, and more difficulties in putting together a phenomenal collection than these. And yet, Tony did just a magnificent job on this, and I think his books will record things, for the next generations of collectors, because
So you got
he's
the
that
books
good.
with the catalog, with the prices realized, and maybe you've got some of these items in your collection. That's so appealing to consider that. Since we have some kind of time constraints, Larry, we might not be able to discuss every lot and story behind every lot in this sale, but could you introduce just one? I know there's several hundred, just one of your favorite items in this auction, and explain why it's unique to you, and share the story if there is one with us.
Well, again, this is almost impossible to do, especially if we consider the postal history. But I'm going to leave the postal history aside for now. And if I were to pick a regular stamp that I really, really love the most, I'm going to have to say it's the small 10-cent, a 9-Kandarin double surcharge variety. It's just a legendary stamp. It's one that is missing from virtually all the really good Dowager collections.
Now, don't some of these rarities have names? Don't they name some of these stamps?
Well, they do.
Things?
And the 10-cent surcharge, wide surcharge on first print is This is known as the Golden Dragon. That's simply what it's known as. This is the red ruby. And that's one of the things I really enjoy about Chinese philately. There's a handful of stamps that are not referred to as catalog values.
They transcend
have a
time
name.
and place. They have a name, just like a
They have a
famous.
name.
That's why I was saying UNESCO Heritage Site. It reminded me of that.
And when
I started hearing these names and the treasures that are in this sale.
And when collectors are sitting around, they refer to the red ruby. That's all you need to know.
And this is in circles. People understand you're actually talking about that item.
And the other really good thing about what Tony Kwan did was the provenance on these stamps is impeccable. So there have been many well-known collectors before him that have
owned by the finest
through
collectors.
their hands.
So these are sought after to this day.
Yep.
Thank you, Larry. Jeffrey, could you please also recommend just one? I don't want to tax you here. Just one of your favorite lots in this auction, and elaborate as to your reasons for choosing this lot, and if it has a personal connection or story, we'd love to hear it.
Okay. Well, this one is an envelope that was sent. It was sent from France in 1896, and it was sent to. It's a very famous correspondence. It was sent to a man who was an interpreter at the French legation in Peking at the time. And since China was not a member of the UPU, the foreign stamps were not accepted when the letter arrived in China. And so the letter arrived from France to the French post office in Shanghai, and then from Shanghai it had to be carried to the north of China. And it also arrived at the time during the winter. I think the letter arrived in January. It was sent in December, arrived in January, and that period the sea around Tianjin was frozen, and therefore all the mail had to be carried overland. There was a special service established called the Winter Overland Service, where the mail was carried from Shanghai through Qingqiang up to Peking. And to pay for this service, they had to apply Chinese stamps, and the postage would be collected, upon receipt. And this was also the period when they were changing the postal system from the custom post to the national post. And in Shanghai, they used these surcharged stamps, which I'd spoken about previously. But the surcharged stamps were not supposed to be officially issued until the Chinese New Year, which was 2nd of February. And so these stamps, although they weren't officially issued, this stamp was applied. It was 4 cents on 4 Candor and Dowager stamps. The surcharge was 4 cents. And so this stamp was added to pay the postage up. And there are probably, I don't know, there's maybe 15, 20 such letters that have survived. And I find it fascinating because it's a very rare usage, and also historically it fits in with the changes in the Chinese postal system.
Thank you, Larry, and thank you, Jeffrey, for presenting these valuable items and their fascinating stories. Now, all that's left is to wait and see which collectors will achieve good results at this auction, and who will be the fortunate enough person to inherit Mr. Kwan's lifetime dedication. I've kind of named it now the UNESCO Heritage Site collection. It's really Tony Kwan's Empress Dowager collection, and I am just so thrilled and honored to be part of this team led by Larry Gibson and Jeffrey Schneider, Ben, Richard, Hugh, the entire team, spanning the continent, to put this sale together and bring it to you for auction. So pre-sale registration, questions, bidding, phone bidding, collecting the lots, assisting with payment transfers, everything is available to you. So just contact us, but don't do it at the last minute because you might be disappointed. So contact us early, bid often, and bid high. That's all I could say, and that's from the Racehorse. Thank you, everybody.
Hello, friends. Just a short word here. We are back after a 5-year absence from Hong Kong. We are now coming back in October of 2024 for a series of outstanding auctions to be held in Hong Kong.
October 11th, 12th, and 13th. Mark your calendars and plan to attend our auctions, which are being held at the Harbor Plaza Hotel, right across the street from our offices, on October 7th through the 10th, where we will be previewing the lots. We welcome you to come and view. We especially welcome you to come and bid, and we are looking forward to your participation because we're back in Hong Kong. Larry, we're back in Hong Kong.
Back in Hong Kong.
Love it. I can't wait. See you all there.